Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Everybody's talking about the top 10 Independence Day movies you ought to watch. I've got a better one than all of them. JD Vance in the news, predicting and talking about AOC. Trump signs tax and spending bill. Previous employment, they're revising it to be lower. It's all happening on Liberty Roundtable Live now. Happy to have you along. I'm Sam Bushman, promoting God, family, and country, protecting life, liberty, and property. That's who we are and what we do. Man, there's so much going on in the news I thought I'd tell you about. Last segment, we basically discussed Lowell Nelson Campaign for Liberty.org doing a great job talking about the Federal Reserve, talking about fiat money. Alan Greenspan died. July the 4th should be Independence Day. But you know what? President Lincoln destroyed states' rights, made us subservient to Washington. But, you can't blame it all on Abraham Lincoln. It was the wickedness of the people in America that lost our sovereignty there, folks. We're celebrating our captivity in many ways, not our independence. I don't mean to be negative with that. It's just the truth. The fact is, think about the IRS and how much money it takes from you. You used to have, one person be able to support the whole family. Now it takes two, and you're still struggling, right? We live pretty nice, but at the same time, things that didn't cost money now are expensive. AC, internet, I can keep going, right? You say, well, you don't have to have the, you know what? You get sick and almost die in many cases if you don't have some type of AC these days. You say, well, what's the difference, Sam? The difference is partly how we build our houses. The difference is expectations in our lives. We spend most of our time inside, not outside. And there's a lot of reasons for the difference. The internet, expensive, right? You got to have it or you can't even work or you can't compete. Anyway, the 17th Amendment was a mistake. Paul Draju highlighting this reality. And there's people trying to do something about it. That's good news. The 17th Amendment really moved us more towards a democracy and violated one of the incredible checks and balances. The states need a seat at the table. Folks, stand up for your state, would you please? All right. Anyway, let's talk about the top 10 Independence Day movies. Several different people have written articles about this. And they highlight different movies of what they think is awesome and must watch and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of it has to do with entertainment. A lot of it has to do with, the graphics and the elements of incredible movies. And I think a little differently when I think about independence, folks. But the top 10 Independence Day movies, according to many, number 1, Red Dawn. Number 2, Saving Private Ryan. Number 3, True Grit. Number 4, Apollo 13. 5, Gettysburg. 6, Top Gun Maverick. 7, Jeremiah Johnson. 8, The Patriot. 9, Air Force One. 10, Independence Day. Anyway, there's the movies that they recommend. You know what? I hate to be negative, but I want to do the top 1. So I'm going to take out the word 10. So mine now says top Independence Day movie. Take out the S. Yeah, there you go. That's mine, right? Top 10 or top Independence Day movie. What would it be? I personally believe it should be educational, not just entertaining, right? So what I would put as the top independence movie to watch is, believe it or not, it is a reenactment. It's part reenactment, in my opinion, part documentary, in my opinion. And you say, well, Sam, what the heck is it? It's called A More Perfect Union. That's right, A More Perfect Union. And why do I think you need to watch that? Because it's not fooling around. It's not fun. It's not blowing everything up. It's not rock stars. It's not this. It's not that. It's simple. A More Perfect Union tracks 1787 and what it took to create this nation. The sweat, the struggle, the reality in Philadelphia on the ground at the time. You say, well, Sam, that's not independence. That's the Constitution. I know. But let me explain something to you that I think many people don't really understand very well. The Constitution for the United States of America is and should be the political religion of our nation. After all, it is the supreme law of the land right now, right? But understood that these documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, these are all, in my opinion, companion documents. They're a suite of documents designed to highlight when government's out of control. I mean, absolutely out of control, and there's no other choices. What you should do is document yourself to a candid world and to God Almighty of why we got to leave. That's what the founders did in the Declaration of Independence. What, 27 reasons? Documented what went wrong, what they had to do. And they highlight in that blessed document, the Declaration of Independence, we should not, leave government or change government for light and simple reasons. Don't just get mad at government tomorrow because you think they did something bad. You got to really look at the long train of usurpations. You got to document it before God. In other words, you got to justify your position and your actions. The founders did that. And they also set straight the truth. God is the ultimate sovereign. Yeah, go read the last lines of the Declaration of Independence if you don't believe me. And we get our sovereignty from God, and we the people, then, are sovereign. But you know what? Government is a necessary evil. And we must have government to fill the void, fill the vacuum. If we don't, then an evil force will take over. So that's why the founders believed we had to have a government, even though they were afraid of government. They saw what governments have done historically, and they were concerned. But they also said we've got to have a balance. And so they did everything they could to create a grand old experiment, a unique style of government, different from any other government that's ever existed. It had some democratic principles. Yep, we all get a vote. We all get to be involved. We're the ultimate sovereigns. We're the ones that delegate the authority. But then we limited it every way we possibly could. And that's why, getting rid of the 17th Amendment would be so blessed, because it would give the states a seat back at the table that they lost. We turned it into more of a popular vote. Disaster. Now the senators are virtually untouchable, and the campaigns are huge. It wouldn't be like that. It wouldn't be a money fest if the states were in charge of electing their representatives in the Senate instead, right? Anyway, I digress, except for the companion documents of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights all work together. The Declaration of Independence sets the stage. It says we the people are sovereign. The Constitution says, but we realize we have to have government. There's no way around it. And constitutions and government are instituted among men by the consent of the governed to protect us from small groups that would destroy our liberty, protect us from our best intentions, protect us from one another, to help the states coordinate and work together in a framework that actually works. The grand experiment was incredibly successful. You say, Sam, it's not doing too well now, is it? People love to say that kind of stuff to me. My response is, when you don't obey it, it doesn't go very well. It's kind of like if you violate the laws of marriage and you cheat on your spouse and you don't spend time together and you don't honor the God-ordained relationship, it goes south for sure, too. It doesn't mean marriage is the problem. It means your adherence to it, your fidelity to it is the problem, for sure. Well, the same thing's true in a constitutional republic. You got to have fidelity to the principles that made it great and strong. You got to obey the principles. Anything in life takes hard work. Marriages, the proper role of limited government, and anything that you have honor to, integrity for, fidelity regarding, it'll go well. When you don't have those things, you destroy it, and then you can't blame it on that. Oh, man, marriage is horrible. You violate the marriage covenant, of course it's going to go horribly. You got to obey the laws. There's blessings and there's, sadly, consequences for actions. I shouldn't say sadly because it's good. It's designed that way by God. But there are consequences. What are the consequences of violating constitutional principles? A disaster government, spending out of control, people getting elected to get rich and ignoring the citizenry, breakdown of authority and proper role of limited, separated power government. All that happens, but it's not government's fault. It's not the Constitution's fault. Anyway, I digress, except for the Declaration of Independence was, we got to get out of bad government. And God, we're sovereign. We have the authority to do it. We the people. And then, hey, we know we need a proper role of government to fill that void. Let's limit it and protect ourselves, and let's put it in place because it's necessary, but let's make sure we do it in a way that it can't run amok. That was the founders' intent. And they did a great job. And the answer to the Declaration of Independence was the Constitution. The Declaration said God's in charge, and he gave us authority, and we gave government authority. Let the creation never be greater than the creator. Then we're going to create government because we have to. We're going to do our very best to limit it and control it and make sure that, like fire in the fireplace, it's wonderful. When it gets outside of the fireplace and it's not controlled, it becomes a disaster. And that's government. And the founders understood that, and the Constitution was their answer. And then they put the Constitution together and said, hey, government, here's your authority, your contract. We delegate these responsibilities to, and then we laid out the three branches of government. And then we said, basically, you give authority that, hey, you can do things the states can't do for themselves that we got to cooperate together on. But everything else is left to the states and to the people. So then we said we got to have a Bill of Rights to make sure that's strengthened. The general government's Constitution, here's what you can do. The Bill of Rights, keeping your hands off of the rest, right? Well, anyway, this incredible Independence Day movie that I'm talking about, A More Perfect Union, documents exactly those things. I'll talk about it more in seconds. I'm Sam Bushman. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education. Conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
A more perfect union, ladies and gentlemen. A nation forged in debate. The story behind the U.S. Constitution. And it's really the story behind the Declaration of Independence as well, because it's like, hey, after we declare our independence, folks, we can't just, set the ship a sail and let it go. We're not a deist type people. We don't believe in just, setting it in motion and winding up the clock and walking away. No, sir. So my top Independence Day movie, A More Perfect Union. It's a nation forged in the debate. The story behind the U.S. Constitution. A More Perfect Union, ladies and gentlemen, follows the delegates of 1787 as they struggle through conflict, compromise, and principle to create the United States Constitution and to create a stronger, better union. And it's called A More Perfect Union, this movie. You can check it out on YouTube. And it's critical because it really helps you understand the suffering that took place, the hardship, the difficulty, the compromise. I mean, it really highlights, Thomas Jefferson in his role, James Madison in his role, George Washington in his role, Benjamin Franklin in his role. I mean, it really lays out what they went through. And you say, why is that Independence Day, Sam? Independence Day is to celebrate the Declaration of Independence. I know. I get it. I got it. I understand. But ladies and gentlemen, you can't understand the Declaration of Independence if you don't understand the rest of the story. Listen to me carefully. The Declaration of Independence was the opening salvo, if you will. King George, you're gone, buddy. Now what do we do? A More Perfect Union answers that. We create a U.S. Constitution. We take responsibility for our independence. Remember, with independence, there's not only blessings and privileges and rights and awesomeness, but there's responsibility and accountability on the other side of that coin. The fathers understood this very succinctly. They knew, they understood. And what they didn't want to do is, hey, after they created their freedom, they fought and died and bled and fortunes and sacred honors and everything on that altar. Last thing you want to do is have it destroy itself after the fact. They realized if we're going to keep this independence agenda on track, it not only takes a Declaration of Independence highlighting what our authority is and where our authority comes from, God, not government. It not only highlights that when government's too evil, we've got to sever ourselves from that government, but never to do it for light and transient purposes. They knew that. They understood that. They documented that. But then they said, hey, how do we keep this government afloat? How do we make sure it doesn't just, like a firework, get fired, go up, and then puff out? Glory so short, right? We don't want that. We want it to be a nation to defy all odds. As the British said, a world turned upside down. That's right. A world where we look to God Almighty, not government. A world where we take our liberties seriously. A world where we safeguard them and we create checks and balances to protect them. And so the Declaration of Independence is huge. Don't misunderstand me. But the answer to responsible Declaration of Independence is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Ten Commandments weave their way through the whole thing. The separation of powers is biblical. Go study it if you don't believe me. So Sam's top Independence Day movie, A More Perfect Union. Why? Because it's a nation forged in debate. It's the story behind the U.S. Constitution. It helps you understand the Declaration of Independence and, frankly, what's the next step? What are the next steps after you declare your independence? We follow the delegates of 1787. Now, that delegate term is very interesting because we send representatives to go meet on our behalf. That alone is unique and separates us from pure democracy. They struggled through conflict, compromise, and principle to create the United States Constitution and then perfect a more perfect union. They worked hard. They prayed. They fought. They struggled. They listened. And it took prayer. It was off the rails in the hot, sweltering summer in Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, until they decided to pray. And until Ben Franklin said, listen, how can a nation rise without his aid? Who's his? God's aid. The guy they claim was a deist, Ben Franklin, literally said we need God's current involvement. Yeah, he learned that over years and years and years. He realized that God's hand is essential, is vital. There is no other way. He knew it. He highlighted it. He doubled down and said it. And they listened. And through prayer and humility, they accomplished something that is just absolutely, number one, unprecedented in history. And number two, so rare. Right? But understand it. We need to understand the Declaration of Independence without a doubt. But you also need to understand that the companion documents, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. You also need to understand there are state constitutions because they're sovereign republics in and of themselves. When we talk about the Constitution, oftentimes we just make people think we refer to federal, but we refer to the constitutions, the state and the general government, as two companion documents. One to control the states. Hey, states, here's your authority and here's your power, and here's how we're going to divide it up and delegate it appropriately by the consent of the governed. And here, national government, you have the same mandate through your Constitution. We gave contracts, we the people, to this government, and it was necessary. After the Declaration of Independence, we realized we've got to have some governing principles. They looked far and near. They looked wide. They did everything, and they came up with this brilliant plan. They were scholars of history, and this plan isn't perfect, but it's a more perfect union. It isn't perfect, but it's the best we've got until the Savior comes, folks. And I believe that the Constitution for the United States of America is the guideline. The Bill of Rights is the guideline. The Declaration of Independence, these documents are the guidelines to help us usher in the return of the Savior Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about and what it's all for. And so A More Perfect Union, a great movie. You got to see it if you haven't seen it already. If you have seen it, please watch it again. Every time I watch it, I realize some things that I didn't realize when I watched it before. And what a blessed thing it is. All right, JD Vance is in the news, vice president. He's predicting AOC could be the front runner for the Democrats' 2028 presidential bid. or presidential nomination. That's a scary thought, isn't it? I mean, this lady's literally a socialist and everything else. And man, wow. She's also young. She, gets trapped in not knowing what she's talking about and looks foolish and everything else. That might be the front runner for them. Who will be the front runner for the Republicans? I don't know. Will it be Marco Rubio? Will it be JD Vance? Will they somehow form a ticket on their own? Will it be Tucker Carlson? Who will it be? Will it be Thomas Massey and Tucker Carlson on a third-party ticket? Or will it be JD Vance and Marco Rubio? I wish it would be somebody like Judge Napolitano and Judge Roy Moore, for example. Put those guys in. That's just my opinion. But anyway, very interesting. Trump signs tax and spending bill into law. I guess there's some good news in it and some bad news in it. They say President Trump signed a federal tax and spending bill. He signed the package, I guess, on July the 4th that extends tax provisions. That's good news. Changes federal spending programs and provides additional funding for immigration enforcement. So, it sounds good on the surface. What's interesting to me, though, is it passed without a lot of fanfare. Most people don't even know about it. Whenever that happens, folks, usually there's a fly in the ointment. So forgive me for being a little bit cynical. We've just seen it too many times. So I pray that it's a great bill. I pray that it protects our borders. I pray that it deals with immigration in a justice/mercy style. And I pray we can reduce taxes and spending and get government back on track. Anyway, they say previous employment gains were revised lower. So the gains were not true. Federal data revised April and May payrolls downward by a combined 74,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs, people. Nearly 1.9 million Americans remain, quote, long-term unemployed is what they call it. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Federal Reserve now facing new pressure because, hey, with all that job loss or, lack of job gains that they talked about, with federal data saying, hey, things are looking worse, with nearly 1.9 million Americans out of work, the economy is not as robust as they once said it was. Gas prices are really high. Federal Reserve now faces new pressure after, quote, weak jobs report. The softer employment numbers are increasing attention on the Federal Reserve and their interest rate decisions. Will they be forced to lower interest rates or at least hold them steady? They've been threatening to raise them. I kind of think they won't be raising them. More economic news will come out. They won't be raising rates. I don't think. I pray they don't. I wish they'd just get their hands out of it and let the economy and the free market, the free enterprise system, let supply and demand control the interest rates. That's what I wish would happen. The court allows states to continue bans on transgender athletes in female sports. I guess they can't be there, so that's good news. The major ruling leaves state law restricting participation in female sports based on biological sex and effect. That's good news. Campaign finance rules are under scrutiny as well. I guess they were relaxed by the Supreme Court. That's a concern in my opinion. The courts struck down initial limits on coordinated political spending, a ruling expected to affect the upcoming federal midterm elections. Anyway, there you have it. Questions are now being really exercised over balance of power in Washington. Legal analysts say recent Supreme Court case decisions could continue shifting authority away from Congress and towards the executive branch. That's of great concern, in my opinion. The sad part is Congress has been derelict in their duty for so long. I don't know if it'll matter much day to day, but it's a tragic, again, violating of the separation of powers. Watch A More Perfect Union, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, thanks for being alongside for the ride. I'm Sam Bushman, LibertyRoundtable.com. We're everywhere. Radio, TV, spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.